What is going on, guys? It's your boy Rebirth, and I'm coming straight from Twitch, where we watched episode 3 of Bleach 1000-Year Blood War. And all throughout the day, it was very obvious to me and a lot of people that people had a lot of issues with the direction of this episode and the decisions being made by Taguchi and the different episode directors so far in Bleach. And so I want to give my general review on this episode, but also talk about a little bit of the concerns you guys have, specifically about the cut content. We'll look at a few examples and we'll talk about really whether or not it's okay, not okay, and things of that nature. So as always, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy the content. You should follow me on Twitch. I watch every episode there live. You can watch it with me every Monday. And so, all right, let's talk about the episode, okay? Let's talk about the episode. And so Bleach 1000-Year Blood War episode number 3 sees Ichigo fight against Killga Opium. Spoilers, by the way, but I'm sure you guys knew that. It sees Ichigo fight against Killga Opium. It's called OP is what they want to call it. And it sees Killga use his Volstan Dish, I think is how we're going to pronounce it now. Volstan Dish. From there, we also see the captain's meeting. We see Yamamoto talk to Mayuri, confirming what we already knew. We see Ichigo go Bankai to fight and combat Killga, who gets beat down by Ion. And the episode ends off with the Quincy's invading Soul Society, the March of the Starcross. So that right there is like six chapters worth of content. And so right from the get-go, I just want to come at you from this perspective. Don't get too hung up on the number of chapters per episode. I just want Bleach fans to understand that from the get-go, because I see a lot of people saying 6 chapters is too much. Well, yes and no. It's not really about the number as much as it is what it gives to the pacing of the episode. And so I understand the issues people had with this episode, but don't get hung up on 6 chapters. Depending on the type of content within those 6 chapters, one episode might just be enough. So don't get hung up on how many chapters it is, all right? But moving on, let's continue. So really, I'm gonna try and speed through this-ish. We'll see. So Ichigo, and I suppose, let me actually do this instead. Art and animation for this episode were kind of wonky. The art was fine, the animation not so much. You'll see there's a recycled animation bit where they sort of recycled the same animation over and over. Not really a fan of it. The CGI and compositing were still A1. Like, the thing with having Taguchi as a director is that really, even when the art and the animation are not up to standard, the compositing still makes things look pretty enough that it suffices. And also, what Taguchi style allows you to do is that even if you have a lot of still shots, you get away with it because the compositing makes things look prettier than they are. I'm not saying whether it's okay or not okay. I'm just saying that's the way it is. When you have good compositing, you can afford to cover up lesser animation or lesser art because the shots usually look good and there's enough things on the screen for us to look at that we can get away with it. And so, again, it's not right or wrong. I'm just saying. So, to talk about a few of the scenes here, we see the Quincy's use their hailing pithiel, I think is how we say it. They use their arrows, all right? They use their arrows. It's not really a great or terrible scene. It's a whatever scene, but it's good. The MVP of this episode undoubtedly goes to Shirosakusu. Shirosakusu brought his A game. The remixes of the Precipice of Defeat, the remixes of one of the Arankar songs, I've forgotten what the title is, but he did a remix of that. He did a remix of another one. The drum, like at the beginning of the episode, you'll see this drum section, also good. Like the entirety of this episode, Shirosakusu just brought his A game. I absolutely adored it. It was great. Stunning. Now, this is an example of what I'm talking about with good compositing, where all Killga is about to do is draw his sword. But good compositing will make something as simple as drawing your sword look good. And, you know, obviously, people who aren't in the know will classify that as good animation, even though it isn't. For example, show me Killga is right there. Oh, look, some people aren't a fan of the Quincy Reishi interpretation. I love it. I love that. That is pretty. That is awesome. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Uryu Ishida's new scenes. Now, as far as Uryu's new scenes go, what we get is Uryu Ishida in the Ishida estate inside a library, looking through some books. Ryukin Ishida comes in and says, I told you not to be here, and I told you not to come in here without my permission. Uryu is trying to inquire and talk to Ryukin, saying, Soul Society and Wakamuto have been attacked. I believe it's the Quincy's. I thought we were the last Quincy's. What is going on? Ryukin blows them off, and so Uryu still wants to probe to find answers. And actually, Ryukin actually says something quite interesting, where he says, the answers you seek are not here. And it's very Ryukin to do, because basically he knows that Uryu really wants to know the truth, or he wants to find some answers for himself, being that he is the last Quincy. And Ryukin doesn't actually want to tell him, but he actually also doesn't want to say, sure, here's what it is. So all he says is, the answer you seek is not here, and then leaves. So Uryu actually, you'll see in another scene that I'll talk about later. Well, I can just talk about it now, I suppose. Uryu is in that same library, he's looking through books, he doesn't find anything, and then he realizes that Ryukin says, the answers you seek is not here, which means it's in this house, but you're looking in the wrong spot. That prompts him to go to Ryukin's room, his office. He finds Soken Ishida's journal, he reads it, he's either sweating or crying. I wanted to believe that he was sweating. Some people said, I wanted to believe that he was crying. Others said he was sweating. I can actually just confirm that right now. Let me actually find out. So what do you guys think? It's right there. You can see Uryu's face right there. Do you think he's sweating, or do you think he's crying? I wanted to say that he was crying. Some people think he's sweating. For me, I think he's crying. That's what he's doing. Anyway, so let's go back to what we're talking about here. So when it comes to the subject of Uryu Ishida's subplot, I think a lot of Bleach fans need to understand that maybe in their minds, when they thought about the idea of Kubo adding extra scenes, it was just a matter of adding things, not taking anything away. But really, the point of the anime adaptation is to attempt, it doesn't mean they succeed, but it's to attempt to make the episode or the series better. And when you have a script writer like Taguchi likes to have things extremely streamlined. No extra information that isn't necessary, no scenes that are already repetitions of what we had before, and really no scenes just for the sake of it. Some people like that, some people don't like that, but it's just the facts of how he does his stuff. He's very to the point. No filler, no canon filler. And so there's a lot of stuff in the anime, there's a lot of stuff in the manga that Kubo actually wrote that I guess Kubo, Taguchi, Hidematsu sat down and said, well, actually, this scene is a repetition of this scene where they say the same thing, just in a different way. So let's just take the information they're talking about in that scene, give it to the first scene, and just lose it altogether. And if you actually stop and go through the examples of these things people are really bothered about, you can kind of start to see the reasoning behind some of the choices they're making. For example, Kilga's a wrong car scene. So in the episode, Kilga goes into his Volstandish form, and he starts to use the Sclaverai. Now, in the manga, when Kilga goes into the Sclaverai mode and starts using that ability, he starts to break down the bodies of everyone around him, including Chad, Orihime, and the Arankar girls that were there, the Tres Bestia. And in the manga, you see the Arankar girls go together, they create this defensive dome, and then they cast a camouflage over it, over Chad, Orihime, and the other Menali and Loli who were there at the same time. And the whole point of that episode was to show that the Arankar girls were trying to do everything they could to survive. And Kilga actually uses the Sclaverai to break through it, just emerging within the camouflage defensive dome, breaking everything apart before Ichigo comes in for the save. So, just to understand this, I fully understand and I'm fully with you if your perspective here is, that was a cool scene, I actually like that scene, I wanted to see it. I'm with you on that. Sclaverai is a very cool ability. It's one of the best abilities in all of Bleach, extremely overpowered. I would have wanted to see that ability myself. I wish I saw it, because Kubo's panel of Kilga using the Sclaverai is actually pretty damn cool. So I wanted to see that. We didn't see it. Now, before you go up in arms, just ask a question. What did that scene do for the story? Well, that scene showed the power of the Sclaverai. And then you ask yourself, have we already seen the power of Sclaverai already? Yes, we have. Kilga uses it in the scene before. When he uses it, he initially starts to absorb everything in the area, which gets the point of the Sclaverai across. I would have wanted the extra scene, but all it does is sort of add to something we already know. And so when you get these series composition authors who are sitting around a table saying, what do we do here? Because we only have 23 minutes to cover this. If we didn't have to put Uryu's subplot, which is like 3 scenes, if we didn't have to put it in here, we probably would have been fine. The episodes that come after this have to do with battles that we want to add extra fight scenes to. And so most likely something's going to have to get left on the cutting room floor. Something's got to go, because we don't want to take away from what's coming in the future. We don't want to have to just stack on extra scenes that are misplaced. And so since Kilga using his ability already happened in this episode, in the scene before, why don't we just leave it at that? I can see the train of thought they're going through. I can understand the reasons for them to do what they did. I don't mind that, because what are you really, what's the problem here really? The problem here is that we wanted a nice shot and we didn't get it. Well, they actually show Kilga absorbing the Arrancar's Orihime and Chad to the point where all of them fall down. So you actually get to the same conclusion. You just missed that one scene where they all do their technique, the camouflage, he breaks it down. That's the only thing that was missing. Everything else is relatively the same. All right, so that's like the one thing. The second thing, and I'm gonna go through, I want to say most, if not all, of these examples so people can understand the process that I'm going to think about it, where I want to see the scenes, but if I don't see them, it's really not the end of the world for me. It's whatever. The second is the lieutenants talking. So the lieutenants have a meeting, and in that meeting, they're discussing the Hollows dying, and as well, they're discussing the Rukongai members going missing. And Izuru Kita comes to the conclusion that these two scenes, or these two incidents, are not connected. What does Squad 12 do? And it sort of leads into Mayuri Kuretsuchi talking to Yamamoto, revealing that he went into the Rukongai district and killed thousands of people there to maintain the balance. People wanted that scene. Why? I personally would have wanted that scene because it shows all our favorite characters interacting. Well, some of them. I want to see Renji. I want to see Shuhei. I want to see Rukia. I would have loved to see that. Yeah. And that would be nice. But can we just stop for a second and actually just think this through? I understand. Believe me, I do. But let's just break this down. Let's break this down. The Quincy's attacked the Soul Society, killed like 158 of the Squad 1 members, tried to assassinate the head captain, although they probably couldn't have anyway. All right? Soul Society has gone into a stage of emergency. Due to the stage of emergency, all the captains have to meet in the captain's headquarters to discuss a plan of attack. In that moment, does it not make sense for the lieutenants to not also be in a meeting? Because who is guarding this area at that point? None of you are at your stations, none of you are with your squads, you're all also in one room. It doesn't make sense under the context of the situation. Whether it's happening at the same time, it doesn't make sense. Whether it's happening at different times, why are you not with your captain? And why is a lieutenant's meeting happening when the captains have already decided? And so, within the larger context of the scene, it shouldn't happen, because logically, if the captains, the most powerful individuals in the city, are at the meeting and we're in a stage of emergency, why are their right-hand men also in a meeting? Who is guarding this area if something should happen? No one. So I'm like, I don't really mind if that meeting never happened. You should stay at your station with your personnel and stay on guard. That's the first thing. Secondly, the content of their discussion with Izuru Kita talking about the disappearance being tied to what Mayuri Kuretsuchi did. Mayuri Kuretsuchi himself talks about it with the head captain the next scene right after that. It's basically a rehashing and a confirmation of what Izu would have said before. Is it really that bad that you missed that? Or are we suddenly all Izuru Kita fans? I didn't know people liked Izuru Kita that much. Not to mention the fact that he gets sniped down by Bazby this episode and he's gone. He's gone. So like, the characterization would have gone nowhere because he's gone. He's gone. Like, the dude is dead. Who cares? I don't care. Get out of here. It's whatever, bro. Whatever. But just to sort of argue the opposite, and to sort of argue from the opposite perspective, there's a scene where fake Aizen, like Aizen's long lost brother with 3 earrings on either side, wrist strap, beads. I'm like, what the, in a chain? I'm like, who is this dude? Anyway, fake Aizen over here from Wish. All right. He's talking to Shino and Yuki, and he basically reiterates the story about the Quincy's and everything. Now, thinking, going from the same perspective I have been the entire time, I'm like, okay, I understood when you had to cut this out, cut that out. Is this not something you could cut out? Because they're just rehashing the Quincy lore. And I can understand if that's how you feel about it. But the more I think about it, I'm like, hey, it was meant to parallel Uryu learning about it while reading Soken's book, to where we have Uryu learning about the history parallel and drawing like a nice mirror parallel to these young Soul Reapers learning about what the Quincy's did from the Soul Reaper's perspective, as Uryu is learning what happened from the Quincy's perspective. All right, not to mention the fact that this is the 1,000-Year Blood War, and this would be the first time anybody would have been reintroduced to the reason for this war to happen in the first place, being that the Quincy's and the Soul Reapers cannot see eye to eye. And so in this situation, this is an example of a scene that should have remained, and it's good that it did remain, even though personally, because I know I didn't want to see it, but I understand that other people probably didn't know, and it probably reminded a lot of viewers as to why this matters overall, as to the danger that the Quincy's pose to the Soul Reapers in general. The third and final scene in this episode that people have a problem with, and maybe I'll talk about a few more, but you know, I'm going to make a video in the future to talk about it. But the third and final scene that people had issues with were Yhwach's entrance. Now, in the manga, Yhwach's boot shows up, everybody looks up, sees him, and he actually like talks to them saying, oh, that's an interesting theory you have. And then the explosion happens. He says, you know, war is such a terrible thing or whatever. And then we begin. Now, I understand the boot was badass. I wanted to see the boot. Also, the gotcha moment where it's like, oh, he's outside the barrier, we're good. And he's like, oh, interesting theory. It's like, oh no, he's inside the barrier. Boom. That's cool. I would have liked to see it. What did we get here instead? What we got here instead is Yhwach has not said a word to people he considers beneath him. And for those who he considers beneath him and he has spoken to, he has killed. They have tried tremendously to keep Yhwach from doing anything that would remotely affect the image that they've put, like where he's above everyone else. All the camera angles are always trying to be like at his level or above him, unless like he's in the sky, at which point it's kind of funny how you're going to do that. But even then, they make sure to actually put the shot above him. So they don't want Yhwach interacting with just anybody. And if he's going to interact, it has to be for a very important reason. And so for me personally, I don't want to see Yhwach talking to some no-name Shinigami. I don't care. He doesn't need to talk to you. You're fodder. You're trash. All right. Yhwach should not bother himself with the likes of you. And so from a comparison perspective, I prefer this because in this version, Yhwach doesn't say a word to them. Secondly, it's supposed to be a sneak attack. I know in both instances, it's still a sneak attack, but it's supposed to actually be, you guys had no idea what was going to happen. Boom, we're here. In the anime, you actually get that because they're just talking. They don't see anything. Boom, people are dead. Explosions everywhere. The Quincy's are here. Whereas in the manga, it's sort of, oh, hey, Yua's over there. Oh no, everybody get ready. The Quincy's are here. It's like, oh, actually he's outside the barrier, so we're good. Oh wait, no, he's inside the barrier. We're screwed. Boom, everybody dies. It's not really like out of nowhere. This is out of nowhere. They were just talking and boom, everybody died. That's better in my opinion. So I will make a video, because I don't want this to go too long, but I will make a video talking about the anime versus manga differences and which one is better. I will make a video on that. Trust me on this. But you guys need to understand that Kubo has been heavily involved in this entire process. Nothing gets made without Kubo's say so. And I believe that if I were in the position that Taguchi and Hidematsu were in, and we went to Kubo and we said, yo, Kubo, we want to add more fights to the battles that are to come later on, and we don't want to screw up the pacing for that episode by pushing some of this stuff there. So instead, what we're going to do is, if any two scenes talk about the same thing, let's just take the information from this one thing, put it onto the other, and move on. I'm pretty sure Kubo would be like, yeah, that makes sense. Isirukita saying the same thing Mayuri says, let's just let Mayuri say it. Or Kilge Opiate using the Sclaverai twice to show the same point. Let's just make him do once and have the same effect. I don't see the issue with that. Personally, I don't. So this episode in particular, this episode was the weakest episode we've gone to the bunch. But however, it was the strongest musical episode we've gotten so far. Shirasagosu brought his A game and I loved every second of it. I absolutely adored what he did here. So, you know, art-wise, honestly, art-wise was pretty consistent, I won't lie. It was consistent as in it was good, but then the designs were kind of different from scene to scene. But ultimately, the animation probably was what suffered the most. The animation suffered the most. And I've seen people talk about, I know one person talked about how they don't believe in Taguchi because he screwed up Ichigo versus Kirige. Quilga, oh my goodness. Like during the manga, I used to say Kirige all the time. I can't get it out of my mind. But anyway, Ichigo versus Kilga in the manga, all the scenes in the manga happened, all the scenes in the manga up to this point in the story happened in the anime. The big fight, the really cool part of Ichigo versus Kilga happens when he goes Bankai, which is in the episodes to come. Because in the manga, we actually cut from Kilga doing what he's doing. We go to Soul Society, they do what they're doing. Alcon is like, get me Ichigo Kurosaki on the phone. It cuts to Ichigo, and then you have Urahara say, oh, actually, they're fighting toe-to-toe. Oh, wait, no. Ichigo's pushing him back. That's the scenes we want. That's not here yet. Ichigo versus Kilga has actually legitimately just begun. Because now he's gone Bankai. The other one has gone into Volstan Dish. Now it's time to fight. And so, for people saying, you know, oh, this episode ruined Ichigo versus Kilga. Not really. They haven't actually fought yet. That's to come in the future. That's just, anyway, that's just me. But hey, you can have your opinion. It's cool. I'm not here to tell you what to think. But hey, I just say, y'all need to chill. It's okay. Taguchi, 24/7, 365, all day, every day. Taguchi, my boy. He's good. We'll be fine. The CGI in this episode, stellar. Iron was in CG, which I was scared that he might be. So overall, I would say this episode is undoubtedly the weakest episode of the bunch. Episode 1 for me was an 8.5. Episode 2 was a 9. This episode is a 7. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. Don't let anyone tell you different. It wasn't great. But Shiro Sagasu, MVP of this episode. And so, I'll leave you guys there with that. It's your boy Rebirth. I will see what I can do. I plan to have a Sclavere video for you guys. I plan to have a Lit Still video for you guys. I plan to do a Kilgay character breakdown. I will talk about a full break. Actually, I have a long stream of Bankai breakdowns coming up for you in the next few weeks. So look forward to it. So if you're here by this time, if you got to this point, like, comment, subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next Rebirth video. This is your boy signing out. We're going to be okay, guys. We're going to be okay. And also, by the way, here's a word of advice. Stay off the internet tomorrow. If you know any Chainsaw Man fans, or if you're on Twitter, stay off the internet tomorrow. I have a feeling Chainsaw Man fans are going to be quite insufferable. And I can imagine why. This is your boy Rebirth, signing off. Peace.